This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. Getting Away with Murder has never been this much fun. A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder is a musical comedy about just how far one poor clerk named Monty will go to claim his inheritance. Running March 28th through May 11th at the Arvada Center, you can get your tickets now for this Tony Award-winning musical. Just go to arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. This episode is brought to you by the Port Aransas Chamber of Commerce. Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. One visit and you'll see why so many have anchored their traditions to the island way of life. Trade mountain peaks for 18 miles of uninterrupted shoreline and start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit. That's visitportaransas.com.
Today on CityCast Denver, banh mi. It's crusty bread filled with meat and pickled veggies, but maybe it's more? And maybe there's a unique Denver style emerging out there somewhere in the metro area. Our new food correspondent, Helen Shu, is back on the show to break down her recent reporting into Denver's booming banh mi scene. But first, we discussed the latest politicking on the proposal to lower Denver's minimum wage, and Helen did her own deep dive on the hotly contested restaurant closure data. Today is Thursday, March 13th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. So, Helen, I want to start with this super controversial proposal that we have talked about before to lower the tipped minimum wage. You have been reporting on this fight at the legislature for Westward. I thought we might trade notes. Mm-hmm. You were at the hearing last Monday. What did you hear? What's the latest?
The hearing started at 8 p.m. and it ended at 1 a.m. And the whole entire time, it was a shit show.
Tell me about this shit show. How would you characterize this shit show?
So it started off pretty abruptly because Representative
Alex Valdez, one of the backers.
Yes, one of the sponsors of the bill. He started with, we're not going to have many restaurateurs testify this time because of the doxing and the hatred and the online vitriol that they got from testifying last committee.
We heard about this too. I actually, our host, Bree Davies, she did some digging on people were talking about 1-star reviews, review bombing. We looked at a bunch of the restaurants from the people who testified. No 1-star reviews. Couldn't find one. We looked at like 5 restaurants. By the way, just saying, this is not what we're talking about, but we did the digging on this. I looked at Yelp. No 1-star reviews.
Did you look at Google reviews?
No, maybe we should.
Yeah.
That's where the review bombs are happening now.
I saw a few, yeah. So it started off already in that tense worker against owner tension, very emotionally charged. And it's an emotional topic, right? Even as the committee members and some of the witnesses are trying to tell everyone, let's be respectful and let's listen to the other side. It just kind of constantly devolved with every next testimony about accusations and sometimes the level of threats or just hateful words towards the other side of it seemed impossible to find common ground. Yeah,
I've heard that I've been talking to some servers and restaurant people. I've heard that this exact debate is playing out within restaurants across the city right now.
Yeah.
And it's personal. It's your paycheck,
Yeah. I mean, there were some inflammatory quotes. I think one man, Matt Ross, he was a graduate student and a worker. He just straight out said, this is a class war. You are waging war on the employees versus the owner class. And so it was an emotionally charged few hours. And then at the end of it, the finance committee was like, this was too much. It's too late in the night.
It's 1 a.m.
It's 1 a.m. Thank you all for taking us through this emotional journey, but we are going to hold the bill over. And to talk about the actual content of the bill, because it did change a little bit from the beginning.
Interesting, because before the initial proposal was lower the tip minimum wage by about $4.
For Denver.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. So basically it was bring everyone's tip minimum wage, the state tip minimum wage, right? Mm-hmm. And then this previous committee, the sponsor introduced some amendments. And so it's kind of complicated, but basically I would say there would be no changes in the tip minimum wage in 2025. Then in 2026, they would reduce the tip wage about $2 and freeze it for Denver, Boulder, and I believe Edgewater, right?
They're talking about some options, is what it sounds like. They can't really agree yet, and they're saying maybe this, maybe that. How do we get everybody on the same page?
Yeah, and their final plan was, we'll finally get to a place in 2029 where in this range that the state is legislating, any city within Colorado can kind of choose where they want to put their tipped minimum wage.
So this is what I took away from your reporting in Westward. And then what I did is I checked in with our past guest, Scott Wasserman, who's the former president of the Bell Policy Center. He's a big backer of the bill. He's been working with the restaurateurs, and he's kind of the numbers guy on the side of the restaurateurs right now, figuring out what people can all get on board with. I asked him about the politics, and we talked off the record for quite a while, but then on the record, his analysis of the debate right now, I thought you might find this as interesting, is bottom line, something is going to pass this session that allows local districts to adjust their tip offset up. So it sounds like, to me, he's saying that this is going to come down to a local control issue.
Yes.
That's the most likely outcome, which is such a classic Colorado thing, that the legislature is going to give Denver the option to lower its tip minimum wage, but maybe not compel them to do so.
This came up a lot, actually, in testimony, much more so than the first hearing, which was this constant question of, this is a problem for Denver. This seems like an issue that's happening in Denver. Why are we at the Colorado State Legislature trying to determine the outcome?
Right.
So I think probably the clearest path to compromise and getting some form of bill through is to lean heavily in the local control direction.
Yeah. Now, the other thing he said, though, is because this is, the Democrats control the whole legislature. This is really a debate between the far left, the more progressive wing, and the more mainstream wing. I think his side of things would be the more mainstream, like establishment side of the Democratic Party that's pushing for this increasing the tip offset, aka decreasing the tip minimum wage. He said this progressive wing, they're more on board with this movement nationwide, the one fair wage movement, which is basically like they want to eliminate the tip minimum wage, have one minimum wage, and then anyone who makes tips on top of that. Apparently, that's what the progressives here want. So, I mean, he said if the noisy radical forces win, this is a quote, no bill will pass.
Interesting.
But then here's what I want to ask you about. According to my data, this is Scott Wasserman, that will mean more closures. So that gets us back to this whole restaurant closure narrative.
Yeah, man, both sides are just cherry picking data at this point.
Tell me about that. You did some digging of your own.
So I think both sides are looking at BLS data, Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so the most recent drop of data came this past weekend. And from the Colorado Restaurant Association side, proponents of the bill side, what you are seeing is this minus 9%. So in Denver, from Q1 of 2023 to Q3 of 2024, there's been a 9% decrease in the number of restaurants, right? You dig a little bit deeper, it is a decrease in the number of full-service restaurants. Now, on the other side of the argument, right, so the Denver auditor, even before the first hearing, he came out with an opinion piece that stated he was total opposition of this bill. You should not be cutting tip minimum wage. And if you look at the data, Denver's restaurant scene is actually growing leaps and bounds and increasing percentages and doing great. And that's because he's looking at the top level categorization of restaurants. So the proponents of the bill are looking at full service restaurants. He is looking at top level restaurants, which include not just full service, but limited service, coffee shops, bakeries, kind of those types of different
What's
models
a full service restaurant is like a waiter comes to my table and takes my order?
Exactly. Sit down.
Okay.
Waiter, maybe a busser, a hostess or host.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. So tell me about this data project you did, because you wanted to look into what is this restaurant closure narrative? What's happening?
There's a lot of numbers like we just talked about being thrown around about, is Denver restaurant scene doing poorly? How many restaurants have closed? Have we lost a quarter of restaurants? That was a big number that was floating around a couple of weeks ago. And I kind of had another question, which is, let's look at the restaurants that did actually close and see if there's any patterns within them, right? not talk about relative numbers of, oh, this percentage of restaurant closed or this huge number of restaurants are going out of business and stuff. It's like, let me see what restaurants actually closed and what is there any interesting data about them. So I took the source of truth is Westward. Molly Martin, the food editor at Westward, she posts every month.
Molly Martin.
Yes. I say she posts kind of the definitive truth on closures. So every single month, she'll just list out the number of restaurants that have closed and that have opened. And so I took that list of restaurants from January 2023 to most recently January of 2025.
2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then I scraped a ton of data from Google Maps and the web. And so obviously, there's always caveats when you're looking at data sets, right? Number one, this is probably biased towards Denver, but I think it's good directionally. And then number two, I'm scraping a lot of this data. I'm doing spot checks, but the internet sometimes is wrong.
Right. And we're going to make this data public, right? Like we can let people see your work?
Yeah, I don't mind publishing it. It's in a Google Sheet. I can open it up for comment access, especially because there's some qualitative data that if enough people are interested in inputting would be interesting. The most interesting qualitative data is what I was really trying to get at with this is, are we sad that this restaurant closed?
Wait, okay. So like the closure that hurts the most, that the most people love this place? Or?
Yeah. Like, is this more of a market correction with the evolution of how times change, business models change, you need to adjust your business model. Okay, so let me tell you some of the results, all right?
Please.
And this might help guide the discussion. So first, I am not discounting the fact that rising labor costs can be a direct cause of putting restaurants out of business or that construction and all these other factors hasn't affected businesses. Those are all valid points. But I am looking at the data and almost a third of them fall into this category. A moderately priced, so like a $15 to a $30 per person restaurant, sit-down full-service restaurant serving either American pub bar food or Mexican food with an average rating of 4.3.
That is so precise.
This is, to me, a legacy kind of business model, right? So they're kind of in that mid-range pricing model. It's a lot of American pub food, some steakhouses, some fancy French bistros, and Mexican sit-down full-service restaurants. And that's kind of the model my parents dine at.
Interesting.
Right? And so I think a lot of these restaurants, they have this squeeze where customer preferences in Denver have changed to be a little bit more modern, favoring more fast casual, honestly, like a little cooler.
I mean, look at all the Asian American restaurants that are being decorated right now. I feel like that's the trendy thing. I'm thinking about Mac Fam, Sapsua. These are the you want Wonton in Park Hill.
Those are the places that are doing well.
Yeah.
You know? And the places that are closing tend to fall into that older model. Here's another data point. So when I was scraping the web, I could only find Instagram handles for half of these restaurants.
Huh.
And I know that's not the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like another signifier of, were these restaurants changing with the times?
Who are you trying to reach? Who are you getting in front of? Who are you reminding you exist?
Yes.
So interesting. So this is maybe, it seems like you're maybe implying that there's some like, that the market is just changing. You know,
the market naturally changes.
Yes. What people want to go out to eat for.
Yeah. And there was also this, from 2010 to 2020, Colorado population experienced hypergrowth. I think it was twice the national rate of growth in Colorado, right? Most of it probably concentrated in Denver. And so population boom, business boom, restaurant boom, corresponding 5 to 15 years later, closure boom. So the data here, I think there's this hidden story that not many people are talking about. And I'm not discounting the fact that it is hard to own a restaurant, especially as an independent restaurateur. But there is also this evidence of this is a natural market correction.
Yeah. Interesting. That is fascinating, Helen. I hope that listeners want to dig into this data and look at it and see for themselves, because that is that's very, very provocative.
And I know the first argument that will come from the other side, which is this is a list of restaurants that have closed. 1208 is a bill that is fighting for restaurants that will close if we don't pass it, right? And that's a totally valid argument, right? I'm looking at the past. They're trying to look at it for the future. So.
Right. And yeah, I mean, big picture, I mean, you have to concede that point to them too. Like if you don't force them to pay their workers as much as they're being paid now, it will allow more restaurants to stay open. But thinking about it with this different perspective, maybe these are not restaurants that are as appealing to the diners of Denver right now.
That's why I was saying at the beginning, I was like, I would love for there to be some crowdsourced information on, are we sad this restaurant closed? Has anyone heard of this restaurant? Did people go and like and enjoy this restaurant?
Oh boy, that's a toughie.
Just personally reading through the list, a lot of these I don't recognize.
I mean, some of them for sure. Like I know Ian's Pizza had big fans. That was like a Wisconsin style place. They put mac and cheese on pizza. Huge fans of that. I mean, I don't know, not for everybody. It wasn't particularly for me, but Denny's is on the list. There's a bunch of places I haven't heard of. What else? What other insights did you glean from this? Give me another one.
There's two other things that I want to call out, which is East Colfax had 17 closures.
Oh.
Which is very significant. So that's probably from the BRT project, right? The construction. And also I know costs are rising there and there's this decline in foot traffic. So that's something that was validated in the data.
The other factor there might be, this is just something I've heard people say, but the mayor, his approach to homelessness has been in downtown, he'll clean up encampments, he'll do these sweeps, but every time he'll offer people housing. And then crucially, he won't allow new camps to be built in those same places. So some people have observed that the folks who would otherwise be living downtown on the street have moved to places like East Colfax. So perhaps that's affecting businesses as well.
Yeah, it would be interesting to talk to these restaurants. And then the other thing is I do think you should separate out the alcohol concepts. I grouped it as alcohol, but it's mostly breweries. There's some wineries and some distilleries in there as well. And that's about 20 plus closures in the last 2 years. I think that is completely separate from what we're talking about here.
Craft beer is having its own downturn.
Yeah, I think that can almost directly be linked to the full strength beer and wine in grocery stores passage.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with Bánh Mi.
This episode is brought to you by 5280 Magazine. Calling all Denver area brunch lovers, 5280 Magazine's annual brunch event is just a few weeks away. Have you bought your tickets yet? The 5280 brunch event is on Saturday, March 29th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Asterisk in Rhino. Guests will be treated to an afternoon jam-packed with sweet and savory brunch menus from editor-picked restaurants, plus tasty beverages including zero-proof options, a build-your-own Bloody Mary station, a dynamic DJ set from DJ Mr. Groove, and so much more. Seriously, have you read any of 5280's food coverage? These people know brunch. And they know that brunch is best enjoyed with friends. That's why they have a specially priced group ticket option for groups of 4 or more. Simply choose the GA ticket type Brunch Crew to redeem. Get your tickets now at 5280.com and tell them Bree sent you. Mimosas.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
All right, we're back. Helen, you recently wrote a really great story on the cover of Westward.
My first cover.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
About Bánh Mi.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's happening with Bánh Mi in Denver right now?
We have just this great variety and volume of bánh mi, and it hasn't just been covered in the mainstream media at all. So Molly had this great idea of doing a deep dive, not like a listicle or our favorite bánh mi places in Denver, but looking into the history, specifically the history of it in Denver and how it's evolved over time. I'm sure it mirrors, the bigger picture of how bánh mi has evolved as a sandwich and as a meal, but this one was Denver specific.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably going to be familiar with that, like the history of the sandwich itself, Vietnam, French culture coming together. Mm-hmm. But here in Denver, where would you say the story starts?
It starts with probably Bakery Palace, Ventura, Bali. Those are the original traditional places. A lot of them brought over their recipes from Vietnam. So they had a banh mi shop in Vietnam and then brought the same recipe over here.
Which is so cool.
It is. And they came as typically refugees from the Vietnam War, and they settled in and around Federal, which to me is like kind of little Asia, little Vietnam.
Yeah.
And they do it traditional, right? So French bread, very typical traditional toppings and fillings. And that's what Denver had for about, 10 to 15 years.
Which, traditional banh mi kind of prompts a question that I learned from your article is really quite interesting, which is, what is banh mi?
Yeah. So there's different variations of this, right? And it's partly globalization and partly, I think, Vietnamese people bringing their own interpretation to their dish. And so first off, it was, banh mi means wheat bread, literally translated in Vietnamese. And so a lot of the traditionalists will say it has to be this French banh mi bread. It has to be crackly on the outside and then very soft on the inside. It's not a baguette. It's different. It's got wheat flour in it. And that was an adaptation in Vietnam because Vietnam's so humid that you can't just make regular dough. You need to have the kind of the rice flour desiccant in it, basically. But there's a lot of people in Denver who make it with baguette because they like it, right? Like Thua Nguyen of Bon and Butter, her parents owned New Saigon, which is considered one of the stalwarts of banh mi in Denver. But she's like, I like French baguettes and I trained as a French pastry chef. So I want to use French baguettes. And so then I ask her, what do you think makes a banh mi? And she says, it's the fillings. You need that flavor profile of the spiciness balanced with the acidity of the pickled vegetables, right? But then I go on to Lee's Sandwiches, which is a franchise in the US that was started by a Vietnamese couple. And the owner in Denver here, he was like, it just means a sandwich. You could put Turkey Club in there. You can put a BLT in there. Banh mi is just a sandwich, And then you go to like a Tokyo Joe's and it's not even a sandwich. It's a bowl. You'll see banh mi bowls, right? Banh mi inspired bowls at restaurants. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. And I think it's also a more approachable way of talking about culture and how it changes and it evolves. And does it belong to a certain set of people or can it be accessible to everyone? And who gets to gatekeep and who gets to be an authority figure in what is this cultural item, in this case, a delicious sandwich. So I thought that was my favorite part of the article, was kind of getting to talk to people in a playful way of, so what is it? Like, what is this dish to you,
Yeah. And then how all those things come together and enter the marketplace and like, what do people respond to?
Exactly.
Because if I'm out there, if I open Paul's Banh Mi shop, me looking like me, tall white guy, and it's like a bowl full of pastrami and rice, people are not going to be happy about that.
And like a pickled carrot.
Yeah. I don't think people are going to want to buy that.
Right. Like if a Caucasian person was to say to me with a straight face, banh mi just means wheat bread, right? It's a sandwich. It can be anything. A banh mi can be anything. I'm just going to take it a little bit differently than someone who natively speaks the language and is using that vocabulary every single day. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a delicious sandwich. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to eat. And my recommendation...
I need to hear it. You ate a lot of banh mi for this story.
Yeah. So Konu's Corner. And so she was the cover shot. That was her face behind the two banh mis. So she's right now my favorite. She does have a more traditional take, but it is upgraded with, she kind of prides herself on using high quality ingredients. Her mom makes it homemade. They've really done a lot of recipe development to kind of fit the Denver palate, she says. So I think what that means is like a little less spicy, a little bit more sweet. And to me, that right now, that's my favorite, but I will keep trying every single banh mi I run across and I'll keep changing my opinion.
This was a tough category for me as a vegetarian for a long time, but you already mentioned my favorite. I was going to recommend Bon and Butter. They got that fried egg banh mi. Delicious. Love it.
So the other one I would recommend, and I still have to get up to Longmont, is a cafe. They recently opened and they have an egg white banh mi.
Oh.
And I was kind of asking about it because egg banh mi is traditional. You will find it in many traditional, usually it's like a fried egg banh mi. But they were saying they really wanted to do Vietnamese coffee because they saw a gap in the market for Vietnamese coffee. It's like the new boba right now. Boba's on the decline. Vietnamese coffee is on the upcline.
I got to try it.
Yeah. And they use so much egg yolk for the Vietnamese coffee, they were just throwing away the egg whites. And so they were like, let's make an egg white banh mi.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think it's kind of fun. It's something Denver specific, you know. I was asking a lot of the restaurants, have you had to change your recipe for the altitude? Because it's baking bread, right? So there was quite a bit of recipe development. People did say it took a lot of iterations and it does taste a little bit differently than, it's really subtle, but it does taste differently. A Denver, Colorado banh mi does taste different than like a California banh mi.
Oh, you're making me feel proud.
Yeah.
That's nice. Anytime there's a Denver specific anything, I'm like, I need to know about that. I need to embrace that.
I think in the next few years, we'll keep seeing a California influence of the fusion type kind of banh mi shops in Denver just because it's natural, right? A lot of people who start the newer banh mi shops, they say, oh, I go to Orange County all the time to get good banh mi. So now I want to start one in Denver. But I'm excited for it to kind of become its own in Denver, right? It's such an adaptable sandwich and it's iconic, but yet flexible. And so I think, you know, there will be it could be a Denver iconic food, you know?
Why not?
Stop some green chilies on that.
All right, Helen, I want to end with a quick segment. I hope we make a recurring feature. What's the best thing you've eaten recently?
Yes. So the galbi from Becca. So it is a relatively new Korean restaurant in Lowry. They do really like home style, authentic Korean food. So it tastes like what you would get in Seoul.
So what's the bite? What should I order?
The galbi.
And what is that?
It's so it can be pork galbi, beef galbi. I go with the LA galbi. It's it's short ribs, and so really good 3-bone short rib, marinated in a sauce, served on grilled vegetables and rice.
Nice, delish.
Yeah,
I got one for you too. Here's my pick. I got something for the downtown heads. People love knowing about good places to eat downtown because there's this perception that there aren't good ones. But I got a good one for you. Decorazone. Decorazone, it's a couple blocks away from where we sit right now. I think it's on Market Street, so pretty close to Ball Arena Union Station. And it is classic Denver style Mexican food. You go in there, music's loud, people are having a good time. At lunch hour on a work day, it is slammed. I've been 3 times in the last few weeks, and here is my bite. Here is my bite that I recommend. Combo platter, so it's going to be smothered in green chili. Get it something, whatever the other 2 items are, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. But the one that's can't miss for me was the avocado tostada. Oh. Avocado tostada with a little bit of that hot green chili. You get the combo of the creamy avocado, the crispy tostada chip thing, and then the spicy hot green chili. Delicious bite. Absolutely delicious.
It sounds great. I'm going to have to I walk by this place a lot. I'm going to have to check it out.
Pop in. That's my best bite of last few weeks or so. And like I said, listeners, we're thinking of doing this food news roundup thing with Helen monthly or so. So if you have any questions or comments or any big data questions you want Helen to look into, we'd love to hear them. Reach out. You know how to reach us. Text or leave us a voicemail anytime. 720-500-5418. Again, that's 720-500-5418. Helen, so fun to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's all for today. You're on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Tokyo Joe about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then. Tell the owner of the friggin' pasta place in Rhino that I ate on Saturday, $90 for 2 mediocre plates of pasta. I was so upset. And they didn't even do service. They did like this. You had to go to the counter. I waited in line for like 15 minutes just looking at Megan from across this restaurant. I thought we were going out to a nice dinner. Turns out I'm waiting in line. I order. It takes 30 minutes for them to bring anything. which, I don't know, felt like a long time. I was very hungry. And then it was bad. $90. Come on.